Welcome back, dear friends and truth seekers. Max here for you, as usual. Today we are going to jump into chapter 9.4, the working model described. This will be a very information-heavy chapter, as you can imagine, and we will describe exactly how this flat Earth model works in reality and in ways that you can observe for yourself. Now, before we do all that, we have to show you the Amazon channel, Amazon webpage where you can find the book and all the links and hyperlinks to all the documentaries and information that I'm providing you. We show you the Rumble channel. Please do like and subscribe. The Brighteon channel, same thing applies. And our YouTube channel. So please give me likes and help us spread the word. Now today's episode starts with a picture. I will read on the screen. Earth is a realm. It is not a planet. It is not an object. Therefore, it has no edge. Earth would be more easily defined as a system environment. Earth is also a machine. It's a Tesla coil. The sun and moon are powered wirelessly with the electromagnetic field, the ether. This field also suspends the celestial spheres with electromagnetic levitation. Electromagnetic levitation disproves gravity because the only force you need to counter is the electromagnetic force, not gravity. The stars are attached to the firmament. Now, this is a quote from our superhero, Nikola Tesla. I will now explain how this model really works in the simplest way possible. There's an infinite amount of further info to be found. Please investigate. The internet is there for this specific purpose. Once you see this, please start observing what is around you, and you will see it for yourself. It is the most liberating experience you can ever have. Now, I will show you here a short list of things that we can look at and confirm. Global anomalies. 1. No proof of curve. 2. No proof of spin. 3. No proof of axis. 4. No proof of tilt. 5. Oceans always flat and level, impossible on a globe. 6. Straight horizon rises to eye level at 10K, 36K, or 120,000 feet. 7. Crepuscular rays, proof sun is close. 8. Zoom lens, proves moon is close. 9. Consistent constellation, proof we don't orbit the sun. Number 10. Mercury and Venus, visible at night, impossible in a helio model. So how does this actual model work in real time? Well, it's like a clock, a most perfect one, almost like something the ultimate creator would produce. So perfect and precise in every detail that it leaves you speechless. So far, I have described how the realm looks and how it's constructed. We can see and imagine the ice wall containing the waters, and we have an idea of how the continents are related to each other in terms of flights and travel. Now let us observe how the luminaries, our sun and moon, interacts with the realm below. I have shown something about perspective, and if this is not clear, please go back and look at it again, because it is essential. We live on a flat realm. Look at it like a ceramic plate or a pancake. The center of the plate is the North Pole, the magnetic center of our known realm. This is where all the energy comes from, and it's the center of all creation. The reason why we cannot use a compass pointing south when we cross the equator is because the center point of our realm is in the center. There is no actual south in our realm. The south as we know it is east, west, north, and south from the center point, that is the magnetic north, in the middle of this realm. I will show you this little picture here that you've already seen before, where you see that the north of the pancake in the center is the center point. Everything else around it is south. On the left side, we have a nice little tweet here from Hal Jordan that I will read for you. I often get asked why I push flat Earth so hard. The short answer is because once one realizes the truth about the Earth, then one can see how great the deception the whole Earth is under. It is at that point that the false narrative falls apart and the system of control crumbles. It is truly like unplugging from the Matrix. Your flat Earth friends aren't crazy. They are trying to help you. The heliocentric model is the foundation of the great deception. Without it, all the other lies get exposed and truth is revealed. So let's go a bit further in this discussion here. The magnetic poles. Here on the left side, on the top, you have a little ball, the ball Earth, with two green little caricatures holding a compass, one in New Zealand, one in Rio, Brazil. They stand under the equator and their compass is still pointing north. Now, on the bottom picture, you have a flat Earth map where they stand exactly in the same position and the compass is still pointing north. That's how the model works. It will never point south anywhere in our known realm. That's exactly how it works. As you can see, and maybe checked on your own, wherever you're located on the planet, especially below the equator, the compass does indeed always point north. I can assure you that if you stand on the exact location of the South Pole without getting arrested or shot in the process, it would show you exactly the same thing. Why is that? And where is the South? Like Eric Dubay so eloquently described in a previous video, it does not matter how south you go, the arrow will always point north, regardless where you are. The problem is you don't know where you are because you think we're living on a ball. On a plane, it makes perfect sense. The magnetic north is indeed the center of the plane. There is no north. There's only the center of the realm where the magnetic center is located. And this is where your compass is pointing at. All other directions around you are indeed south. In the center of our realm, high in the sky, above the so-called North Pole, is the North Star, or Polaris as it's called. This star is at the center of our realm, and this star is the main guiding point of all navigators through time, as they all use it as a navigation tool. Back against the star, you're going south. Facing the star, you're going north. Left shoulder to the star, you're going east. Right shoulder to the star, you're going west. Pretty simple navigation tool in my view. I think even I could pull that off. And of course, it can only work if this one star never moves. The reason this is working for millennia is because that is the only star that never moves. It always stays exactly in the same place all of the time. How does this work when we are spinning and the galaxy is spinning and we are following the sun in this marvelous speed at millions of miles an hour? I don't know. Maybe we're not spinning at all? You see, Polaris is the center point of our realm. And all the stars and planets we are told of spin around it. You don't believe me? Look at this little video here. This shows you exactly what I'm talking about. Here we go. Isn't that just fascinating? This is a real video taking of our realm through time, and you see these stars circulating around us. Circulating around us, because we are the center, okay? Another interesting bit of information in this regard comes from the famous Georgia guidestones that we previously discussed. You see, in the center of these guidestones is a hole where the North Star would be visible each night. It's marked here on the picture as number 3, and there you can see the arrow pointing to the North Star. Now there are many landmarks, such as pyramids, that has the same function. Now this clearly cannot occur on a spinning ball, as the stars would never be in the same place, ever. It's obvious that we don't spin around the stars. They spin around us. Our flat realm does not move. They are moving like a perfect clock around our realm, telling us time, day, night, and months, years, and astrological ages. More on that later, though. So how does the sun and the moon work on this model? I know that you're dying to hear, because this is the big one. So let me show you here. Here it is. You see, as you could see from this little video, our sun and moon are indeed a local phenomenon. The sun is not 94 million miles away, and neither is the moon. They are local luminaries, spinning above our flat realm, and they are of the exact same size. They orbit around us every single day due to electromagnetism transmitted from the North Pole that hold and lock them in place. They're just a few kilometers above our heads at all times. And yes, the scientist that you heard before in a previous chapter was correct. The moon is plasma. Nobody has ever landed on it because it's impossible, and NASA knows this really well. So what you saw here on the video, if the sun travels through our clouds, how can it do that when it's 94 million miles away? Now let's also look at this other video that has been modified with a negative filter. I don't think this can be explained in any other way then we have indeed a local sun. Let's have a look at that one. Also, how does the sun create these crepuscular rays that we spoke of before? Let's look at that a bit closer. Now, the luminaries above us cannot behave and show the magnificence to us in this manner if they were far away. We live on a flat plane, that is all. Now, in order for you to understand really the model visually, I will now show you a really powerful demonstration of how our luminaries move and behave over our flat realm. The video you are about to see shows an entire year, and the clock with dates is on the left of the screen. You will notice how it starts from the Tropic of Capricorn, later moving to the equator, and later to the Tropic of Cancer. You remember how I mentioned to you before how the tropics are really, really important in this sense? This is how we have seasons on our realm. It has nothing to do with our distant sun, or a tilt of the planet, as mentioned before. It's working like a perfect electromagnetic clock. It explains everything. Summer in Sweden versus winter in Australia. It's not the tilting planet. It's the sun moving away from that tropic. It also explains why Antarctica never melts, because they get the least sun all year around, while the Arctic has a distinct season and flora and fauna to prove it. This is impossible on a ball, like I mentioned before. So let's go through this beautiful little video, and I'll see you on the other side. So, a little bit of a lengthy video, but we did go through an entire year in less than 8 minutes, so that's not too bad. I hope this explains exactly how our luminaries travel across our plane. And what's interesting to note is that if you live on the equator, it never gets cold. It's always hot or hotter, right? And that's because the equator always gets the most amount of sunshine during the year. When the sun is going through the tropics, the equator always gets the most sunshine, both when the sun is in the north hemisphere or in the southern hemisphere. So now let's look at a demonstration here about electromagnetism, and let me show you and demonstrate how our luminaries move around our heads. There's always a magnet in the center. Well, pretty interesting, right? That is a working model for you right there. Just that in our world is on a massive, massive scale. But the principle works just the same. Now, if we add a bit of perspective into the general equation and zoom into the sun when it sets, what do we see? Well, we see it moving away from us, not setting under the supposed curvature. Please observe. So, how can the sun be unset by zooming in on it? Well, because it does not set. It travels further away from our line of sight. That is all. And that is proven in this video, because if you zoom in on it, you can actually bring it closer to you, and you see it's not under the horizon at all. It is moving away from you. Now, let's go in and look at history. Let's look at some maps from back in the day that demonstrate something really interesting in the North Pole. Now, this area that I'm about to show you is called HYPERBOREA. It's constituted by 4 continents with 4 rivers flowing from the center. Flowing out from the center, I should say. Now, legend has it that these areas were inhabited by giants and pygmies. Who knows if that was real or not? I cannot say, of course. Located at the center, that I will show you here, is a black volcanic rock of massive proportions. This rock is called Rupes nigra, and it's actually actually mentioned in many ancient writings. You can see it here on the map on the right, where you see this landmass with this little pyramid-shaped little structure in the center and the 4 rivers flowing out of it. The other continent you see that is in pink color below is Greenland. So this is just north of Greenland, okay? Now this is the navel of the world, the center of all things. This is where magnetic north is located, and it's also a vortex. Now this vortex is said to absorb enormous quantity of water into inner Earth and then eject it again. It's said that the tides we observe in our oceans are due to this vortex. This would explain why this can never be observed on lakes and rivers, as they are not interacting with the seas. The seas are flowing freely, but lakes are not. If you look at the left side of your screen, there you see a very ancient map that also has this landmass in the center. What's even more interesting about this particular map is the fact that the whole ring around our realm is not frozen, it's actual land. This map is supposedly from the 1500s. Okay, so it's a very old map. It's displayed in the UK if anybody's interested to see it. I don't remember the name of it right now. But there you have it. So these two maps both show Hyperborea in the center. And now I'll show you another map. I think this map is from France, from back in the day, hundreds and hundreds of years old. And on this particular map, which you can see here right now, it's called Planisphere. And here you see the ring around the white part, it says Terres Antarctique. So that's the Antarctic lands. But on this map, in the center, where the North Pole is located, there is no landmass. So isn't that interesting? They just somehow disappeared. So here we have another example of maps before. The top part, you can see Hyperborea with the rivers in the center. And below is the maps now. You see Greenland is still there, but the entire North Pole is empty. So, as you can see, at one point this continent in the north was erased from the maps, and in today's age does not exist and has been forgotten completely. What is even more curious is the fact that if we search on Google Maps, not only is there no land at all, but there's also no ice. So why is Antarctica white, while the North Pole, where we know ice is present, is not even shown? On the left side here, you can see obviously Greenland, which is completely white and frozen. So they're telling me that north of Greenland, it becomes hotter. There's no ice up there. Wouldn't it be the other way around? I don't get it. Now, another interesting thing to look at in this perspective, and thing that is worth looking into, is our time zones. We know that looking at a map, it makes absolutely no sense. Why would a country that is north of me have a different time zone? Why is it so complicated? And they are even worse at the equator. Why? Because the equator is the midline of the ball. It does not work on a ball. You know where it works perfectly? On a flat realm. Let me show you. So here you have your time zones. You see how confusing they are and how they overlap somehow? Why would they do that? We have another one here that is also really interesting. That's even more hilarious. You have time zones that are actually overlapping here. If you look at Iceland there on top, it actually goes into the other time zone. I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. Somebody is compensating for something. And why do we have all those breaks on the lines? It makes absolutely no sense. So let me show you what it would look on our flat model, shall we? On the top we have the time zones on a globe, big hairy mess. Time zones on a flat Earth, clear and orderly. Perfect lines, all leading to the center. And on this model, it works very, very well. Now let me show you another clip here that speaks more of the infamous Kiribati trade route that we mentioned in the previous chapter. And listen to what David has to say about this. I think it comes in the end of the video, but it's truly fascinating. So take a listen to this.
Can I take 2 minutes and show you something that is very interesting to me? So you can go on these ship tracking websites, okay? And here's some ships, and we found a ship 730 miles inside the shoreline of Antarctica. How did it get there? At 730 miles, it's almost 2 miles above sea level, because Antarctica, remember how high it is? And then we found another one 905 miles in, and that's over 2.37 miles above sea level. So, like, well, what the heck is going on there? And if you look at how this is a map that was found in a Buddhist temple, supposedly 10 centuries old. It was published in 1910 in a Florida newspaper, and it's showing all of these continents out here. Like, what is going on here? So let's just take this to the next step. And so here is, so when we clicked on one of those ships, it had very little information. Normally you get tons of information, where it's going, how long it's at sea, when it's arriving. All it says, it was registered into the nation of Kiribati, it's pronounced. And it was 850 meters long, which is a gigantic ship, 80 meters wide. So where's Kiribati? It's out here in the middle of the ocean. I had to put a pin on it. It's literally a sandbar, right? And America, China, Vietnam, all these countries say, oh, it's a very, very important trade route. It's a very important trade route. Why would a giant ship have to stop at this sandbar to be a trade route, okay? So that I find very interesting. So let's just go a little bit farther here. So if we look at the ships that are all at that dock and we click on them, it's hard to see, but I'll tell you what they say. All of their destinations say unknown or Christmas Island. Now, some people say Kiribati, they call Christmas Island. Some people say it's another place. It's weird that they all have the same destination or unknown. And it's very, very, very interesting. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing. They used to do a lot of nuke testing there. If you know anything about nukes, that's just another thing to keep people away. But if we look at time zones, right, on a ball of globe Earth, North Pole, South Pole, you got 24 lines dividing the Earth up into 24 time zones. As the Earth spins, the sun travels through the time zones, and you have all of your time zones. But Kiribati was in this weird spot. Let me zoom in. It's right here. So this time zone zigzags all over the place. How does that work on a spinning ball, right? Why? There's 3.5 time zones here, right? And Kiribati is, I would call it, in the most suspicious spot, right? So if we look at time zones, there should be 24 time zones, but there's 19 time zones in the north, 24 in the middle near the equator, and there's 32 time zones in the south. Well, if you tried to wrap that map around a ball, you'd have to squish this down, right? Why are there 32 time zones in the south and 19 in the north if we're a symmetrical ball, right? And so here's what I think is going on. And this, again, this is not needed to prove the Earth is flat. If this was the world, right, they squished it all around, so everything outside this line here, they say, oh, that's just Antarctica. It's a continent at the bottom of a ball, right? But what if there was a trade route and it looked like this? Here's Kiribati, and it goes out, and these ships are going out here to these other civilizations. Where do we get our computer ships from? Where are we getting all our tuna fish from? Where are we getting, maybe they're trading children, weapons, technology. We don't know. We don't know. And the thing is, you can't say, well, that can't be. You didn't ever hear about Kiribati until just now. You just never even thought of this as a possibility because the controllers did a fantastic job. They made it so flat Earth is something that you can't even question, don't have any interesting questioning. And and nobody wants to go to the South Pole or the North Pole because we're all programmed with National Geographic shows showing the guys going to the North Pole, freezing their butts off. They're running out of food. They're eating their dogs, right? Then they get there and it's dark and cold and there's nothing there. That is to program you, so you never say, "I want to go to the North." I think there's lots of interesting stuff in the North and more interesting stuff in the South.
So there you see how it actually works. This model is perfect. It's much, much more perfect than the heliocentric model that they try to shove down our throats every day. This is a model that actually works and can be proven to work, as I just have. But we chose to adopt a model that does not function, in the real world anyway. And thus, this makes life even harder than it really needs to be. And that's by choice, I might add. So, let's go even further and discuss the firmament. So, if we live on a flat plane with orbiting luminaries above us, what about the stars? What is really up there? As crazy as this sounds, please stick with me through this because it's important. Now, here is how it really looks. And I will explain to you why it has to be this way. Now, enclosing our realm is a solid firmament, or dome, made out of unknown materials that seems to be impenetrable. They've tried to penetrate it with bombs and supposedly even nukes, but to no avail. Now, this is by no means a novel idea or concept. All our ancestors in history described exactly the same things since the beginning of our known time, as you can see on your screen now. It was only until NASA came along and turned the whole concept upside down that we started to believe that we were living on a ball. On your screen you will see many different civilizations here, alright? The recognizable feature of each picture here is that all these realms are covered by a dome, a firmament. You have the Greek, the Navajo, the Indians, the Hebrews, the Incas, the Chinese, the Roman, the Islamic, the Masonic, down on the left corner, and in the middle we have NASA. That has nothing to do with any of our ancestral civilizations that were here before us. So I wonder who's lying. So, what do we know about this firmament? Well, we see it mentioned in the Bible several times. We see it mentioned in declassified documents from NASA and military agencies. Same documents I showed you on previous videos that clearly mentioned flat, non-rotating Earth, right? We know that after World War II, Admiral Byrd and his gang, there were serious attempts to try to penetrate it with nuclear weapons, if they actually exist, that is. The project was called Operation Fishbowl, which I find to be an absolutely fitting name. We know that Werner von Braun placed that specific psalm on his tombstone, specifically hinting at the firmament, as I described before, because of course he knew. If you look at your screen now, these are all the scriptures from Deuteronomy, Job, different Psalms, Proverbs, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Romans, Judith, etc., all mentioning flat earth and the firmament. Okay, this is from the Bible. And some of these are from the book of Enoch, that are the hidden books of the Bible that were taken away. On the right side, we have all these different statements out of the Bible: Isaiah, Proverbs, Genesis, Job, Genesis, Enoch, etc. It says, "The earth is a cycle, made with a compass, laid upon a face, which is bounded at its ends. It does not move, and is covered by a dome, containing the sun, moon, and stars, which are revolving above and below is water." So you see, the stars that we see that rotates around us in perfect circles every day are part of the firmament, or just above it in the waters above. Do I know this to be true? Absolutely not. I have no proof that there are waters above the firmament, as I cannot go there. But many things point to its existence. The Bible mentions how God Almighty divided the waters above from the waters below and created the firmament. But I am not a Bible scholar, and I will not get into that. I just find it interesting that it's mentioned over and over and over again. Also, if anyone with a decent telescope looks at the stars above, this is what they observe. Let me show you on this video. Does this look like light through water? Because for me, it sure looks that way. Take a look at this video. Now just consider for a moment all the constellations we see, always present every night in the same place, and has always been there all through history. How can this be possible if we're constantly spinning and chasing the sun at ludicrous speeds? How can they remain in the same place every day? Now listen to the speeds mentioned in this video and tell me if any of this sounds realistic to you. Just use your logic and reason.
So we'll jump there and we'll get back. And what difference does it make? I still have to go to work on Monday. We're all programmed to say that. Well, guess what? I don't even know what day of the week it is today because I don't have to go to work on Monday. All right, but I work my ass off more than before, and I've never been happier. Why the lie? Because if they can convince you that you're spinning out of control, lost in space, where we're running out of food, we're overpopulated, we're running out of fuel. All of this crazy stuff is going on. You're insignificant. You come from pond scum. And you've just evolved, let me tell you a cool story. Once upon a time, there was nothing. It exploded and became everything. And then everything started turning into perfect balls, into perfect orbits. And then lightning struck and created an amoeba, which is impossible. And that amoeba turned into a fish. And then the fish grew legs and climbed out of the water and found another sexy fish with legs and had a monkey. And that monkey climbed a tree and had a human. And that's, where Jim and I came from. Okay. So, if you believe that, you are disconnected from reality. And you could be convinced of anything. You look at a little kid, he's out there playing in the playground. He knows that the playground is not spinning and whirling and twirling, right? He sees the sky, the sun and the stars and the moon move across the sky. He sees that, but then he goes to school and they go, oh, no. They're not moving, you're spinning, right? You're spinning and whirling and twirling and chasing the speeds, right? We're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. So when you watch the sunset, beautiful sunset, you're down at the beach, right, Jim? You're in Florida watching the sunset, and the sun isn't just moving away like it appears and sinking into the horizon. You're falling over backwards faster than a friggin' bullet, faster than the speed of sound. Okay, that's how the sun sets on a ball Earth. You're on the top of the ball and you're falling over backwards. You're also orbiting at 66,600 miles an hour. Funny number, right? You're chasing the sun at 500,000 miles.
Whoa! Slow down. What was the number?
66,600 miles an hour. Right?
I never picked up on that.
Wow. It gets worse than that. So we'll just sidestep that for a second because there's a million of these things, right?
Okay.
It's here. This is the one will be easier to see. Where is it?
Interesting.
The 6 times 6 times 600 is the circumference of the Earth, 0.66 inches per mile, 66.6 thousand miles per hour. 6 times 6 times 60 is the diameter of the moon. And there's 100 other ones. Weird, okay? Why? What does that mean? I don't know. It's just weird. I'll just say it's weird. Right?
Number of the beast with hell and fire.
Thank you, Iron Maiden. I learned more about history from the band Iron Maiden than I did in school. Six, the number of the beast.
So guys, listen to this. Listen to this. So we're moving at all of these speeds. So let me just put that into reference. This is called the hypersonic sled track. I got no sound here, but if you look it up, hypersonic sled track, the sound is shocking. Right? This is a rocket sled run by NASA. It goes by a Mach 8.6 times the speed of sound. Right? Watch it. Ready? Can't even see it. You can't fathom what that speed is. Well, guess what? The big, rocky, lumpy water ball surrounded by perfectly curved, smooth water, surrounded by air adjacent to a void, which is impossible, right, is moving 10 times faster than that around the sun and chasing the sun 100 times faster than that. So it's moving in two directions, 10 times and 100 times faster than this. But when we go out in nature and let our senses do the talking, we see stuff like this, right? What do your senses tell you? Right? Go in a car, 100 miles an hour, perfectly smooth road, best car ever, great suspension, get a dinner plate, fill it with water, and have that car speed up or slow down and take the slightest turn off that tangential speed. What happens to the water? Okay? Does it stay like this? This is stationary. The Earth does not move. The speeds are incomprehensible, right? Incomprehensible. A bullet, okay? A rifle bullet the orbit of the Earth is 30 times faster than a rifle bullet, okay? 230 times faster than we chase the sun. We're chasing the sun 230 times faster than the bullet, right? But we're out here, and this International Space Station is not only matching all of those speeds of the Earth, the International Space Station is not floating in space. Did you know that? It's falling towards Earth, but it's moving forward so fast that it keeps missing the Earth because of the curvature of the Earth. Right? There's gravity up there. People think, oh, there's no gravity in space. No, there's gravity, but an orbit is, as you're falling, if you fall a mile, the curvature drops a mile. So you match that speed, but the Earth is corkscrewing through space, and somehow all of this stuff magically follows that. When I show you some of the screw-ups on the space station, wires, green screens, augmented reality, one of those is enough to go, okay, they're lying about space. That's it. But I can show you 1,000.
So, if we apply the heliocentric model, we would never, ever see any constellations, let alone any stars or planets. The night sky will be a whirlwind of lines going all over the place. But instead, we see this, what is on your screen right now. In the same position every single day. You see how the picture of the pyramids of Giza, they are perfectly aligned with the constellation of Orion. Every day, forever. This is not possible if our planet moves like the picture below, chasing the sun at those incredible speeds. Also, if some logic is applied, why have we never seen a falling star falling north to south, or vice versa? We only see them going from west to east, right? What you see on the picture has never happened. If we live on a spinning ball in outer space, why is it then we never see a random star falling up from the horizon? Well, because the Earth obviously is not a ball. You see how this starts to make sense now, ladies and gentlemen? Now, another interesting phenomenon that speaks to a firmament are rainbows. We all love our rainbows, don't we? Let's listen to this smart gentleman describing rainbows to us. Here we go.
Rainbows are a reflection off of our firmament, and I'm here to prove it. Globers say that can't be because from a helicopter, when we look down, we see a full circle rainbow. Well, think about the vantage point. If you were standing inside of this glass dome, let's say here, and you're looking up and out, look what's behind you. This. So if light was reflecting off of it, you'd be getting that. Now imagine that you were up high in this, looking down. Well, what's behind you? A circle. Now let's get to my favorite proof, God's promise. God sent a rainbow to Noah to promise him he would not flood the earth again. Now I always wondered, what does a rainbow have to do with floods and rain and... Well, I'll tell you why this symbolizes just that. You can find the answers in the book of Enoch. Let's read it together. I raised my eyes toward heaven and saw a lofty roof with 7 water torrents thereon. And those torrents flowed with much water into an enclosure. And I saw again, and behold, fountains were opened on the surface of the great enclosure. And that water began to swell and rise up on the surface, and I saw that enclosure till all its surface was covered with water. All right, now let's imagine this taken up to a lofty roof and seeing 7 windows on this thing open up and water come down, filling up the enclosure of earth. Then when the ark landed, he was given a rainbow to symbolize he wouldn't flood the earth again. 7 windows, 7 colors, each color representing the 7 windows now closed, and the rainbow shows a solidity, a solid dome. Oh, and you know when you're standing on the ground and you look straight up at the sun and see a rainbow ring around it? Imagine standing in the center of this, looking up at a sun. Look at what you got here behind it. A circle! And think about how crystals make rainbow light through reflection and refraction. Same as our rainbow. Reflection off the dome, refraction off the rain. You can argue all day that a rainbow is not a reflection off of the dome, but spiritually, it is a symbol that represents the dome. And the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 windows that are now closed. All the answers are there, you just gotta look for them.
So this gentleman explains it his own way. He's a nerd, just like me. On your screen now, you will see a couple of pictures here. I read for you. Job 37:18. Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong, and as a molted looking glass? They speak of the firmament. So ever wonder why rainbows are shaped like a dome? Well, there you have it. All these images you see here are of the sun. That obviously is reflecting of something of dome shape, right? It's absolutely fascinating when you look at it from this perspective, because it actually starts to make a lot of sense. Now, proof of this supposed firmament, well, we don't have much, except what our ancestors told us, of course. We also have the Go Fast rocket that I showed you in the previous chapter. What did that rocket hit? What stopped it at 350,000 feet exactly? Could it have been a dome? Now I have some additional info here that I can share to you that is truly fascinating, coming out of Antarctica of all places. Here I have a video from a whistleblower that recently surfaced. And the interesting part is that there are 2 different videos taken at different times of the same structures that are indicated in the video. Is that enough? No, I wouldn't say it is, but it's something to start looking into. So let's start by playing that and see you on the other side.
An Antarctic explorer who lives at the edge of the Earth not only saw everything with his own eyes, but also managed to secretly film the dome supports and other strange things. His video will follow, but first I will voice his story. I was part of the 47th closed Antarctic expedition in 2002. when I was included in a research group that was heading inland. The driver of their car got sick, and I replaced him. Before starting the trip, the head of the expedition instructed me and forced me to sign a non-disclosure agreement. He told me to forget everything I was taught in school, that the Earth is a sphere. It is flat as your frying pan, and we are on the edge of it. Everything is covered with a dome. Don't tell anyone about what you'll see there in the ice. We were also prohibited from taking photos or making videos there. We drove south for 6 days until we reached a wide river with unfrozen water. The head of the group forbade touching the water, saying that there was radiation. But what was on the other side of the river gave me goosebumps. There was a massive metal support about 2 kilometers high. The leader said that such supports are installed around the Earth every 53 kilometers. Supporting the dome. What dome? I asked. Watch carefully, he said. Indeed, if you look closely, you can see that the sky looks like glass or blue plastic. And from time to time, fireballs flew by, rapidly soaring up the surface of the dome. I pretended to go to the toilet and slid behind an ice floe. I started shooting on an old hidden mobile phone. However, the phone was old and the camera was bad. This is what I managed to capture. Now skeptics probably can't wait to print comments.
Oh, it's a fake, an old phone, a bad camera. But there is one catch.
I would have thought the same thing if I hadn't stumbled across the following video. This video was shot from the same angle, from the same river, but not on an old phone and not in 2002. It was in 2017, and the quality is excellent. Two videos from different sources. Of course, they could all fantasize, but the most curious thing is that they all fantasize the same way.
Now, I don't know about you, my friends, but I find these 2 videos to be absolutely fascinating. What is that structure? And what is it shooting up in the sky? Is that what is feeding the dome or the firmament? Is that what is giving it energy and power? I have no idea. But as the guy on the video says, it's pretty compelling because we have 2 videos from 2 different times. So who knows? One can only speculate, and of course, we're not allowed to go there in the first place now, are we? Now, another interesting aspect to this is what many speculate the dome is made of. It is an ice-like substance that they call sky ice. It's blue in color and is found only in Antarctica. It behaves like ice, but is much lighter and much colder. It melts like ice, but it doesn't leave any water after melting. It just vanishes into thin air. It evaporates. It cannot be studied in any labs far away, as it melts very quickly. So let me move on and show you another clip here that talks about that exact thing. And could this be what the firmament is actually made of? I have no idea, but we could speculate, right? So I'll see you on the other side.
Family, welcome back. I hope you guys are doing great. I wanted to pass something along that somebody shared with me a while back, and I just haven't had a chance to share it, but it's extremely interesting. It's one of those things you just have to share, and the people I've talked to about it had never heard of it, so I figured maybe you haven't, and it's great that we share information that we come across, kind of break some of the mystery of what's going on beyond where we're allowed to explore. And this story is one of those that will blow your mind because it reveals sort of what we already assumed would be going on there, But this person that shared this with me was very kind and said, hey, this is really cool. Have you heard about this? And I haven't heard anything about it until they shared it. This channel here, yup0123, and they said, I found this on Facebook and I think it's worth sharing with you all. I kept the original post's layout untouched to keep its originality. So they've broken it up. You'll see what I'm talking about, or what they're talking about here in just a second. And the story, I will scroll to it, starts right here. And this person reached out on one of those truther Facebook pages. There's lots of them where they were talking about the firmament. And they had a military background. And they said, I've never really believed in Jesus or done the whole church thing, but I think I've seen the stuff you guys are talking about here. I just didn't know what it was at the time. This person was in the Army from 1997 to 2000, and they said, I was sent to McMurdo Station in Antarctica. I was a helicopter mechanic and a crew chief, and they had volunteer tours open for guys to go there and work on the helicopters there. When they asked for volunteers, sorry, there's some typos here. I'll try to read it and say what I believe they were trying to say. But it says, when they asked for volunteers, a bunch of us applied, but only me and one other guy got accepted. The application process had a bunch of questionnaires that we had to fill out, and we had to sit for a bunch of one-on-one interviews. It was mostly just a bunch of questions about what our interests and beliefs were. It's weird that they would ask about their beliefs. I was sent to McMurdo Research Station in August of 1998. When we weren't busy de-icing the aircraft and working on them, we had time to hang out with the scientists at the research station. The military unit attached to McMurdo was small, and we didn't have our own separate facilities. We didn't have a PX or a media center. There was no chapel or chaplain, and we didn't have our own separate mailroom. We just had to share the same facilities with the scientists and researchers. So over time, I got to be friends with a few of them. They had two different kinds of ice they worked on and studied. This is where it gets interesting. One kind of ice was the normal kind that we've all seen. They took cores of it out of boreholes in the ground. Just like normal ice, it was mostly clear and sometimes white, and it would melt into liquid water if it got warm. The whole area of Antarctica is covered in this kind of ice. But that wasn't their main kind of ice. The only time I ever saw them actually studying normal ice was when a film crew from National Geographic came by. The rest of the time, which was most of the time, the scientists were studying something they called sky ice. This stuff was totally different. We were never allowed to go into the laboratory areas of the station because the labs had to be kept super clean, and they said it would mess up their work if they risked letting too many people in the lab. But one time, one of the researchers that I was friends with showed me a piece of sky ice. You couldn't touch the stuff with your bare hands because it was so cold. And it wasn't clear or white like normal ice. It was solid blue. He said that's why they call it sky ice, because it was the exact same color as the sky. We had to wear thick, heavy going outside gloves to handle it. The stuff was so cold, it would instantly freeze your skin if you touched it. I don't remember what the temperature he said it was, but it was something like hundreds of degrees below zero, way colder than the normal ice that was outside. He had to carry it in a metal bottle that was kind of like a thermos. He let me play with the piece of it for a while. It felt lighter than a piece of normal ice of the same size, like it wasn't very heavy at all. It almost felt like you could throw it up in the air and it would just float back down. But I didn't try that. And it was also a little flexible when I tried to bend it. It didn't break like normal ice would. And even for a small piece, you could see through it. It was solid blue right from the surface. And here's the really weird part. It didn't melt into water. When it got warm, because we had it inside, it just started to shrink. It got smaller and smaller, but my glove never got wet. And there was no water on the floor. The stuff just turned into thin air when it got warm and vaporized. He said that was the reason why they had to study the stuff right there in Antarctica. You couldn't take the sky ice back to America to study it because it was almost impossible to keep it cold enough during transit. And then they shared a verse right here where it says, And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And then we continue off where it says it would always vaporize into air, and you'd have nothing left when you got back to the U.S., he said. Russian scientists had discovered the same problem when they tried to take the ice back to Russia. So that was why they all had research stations in Antarctica. After maybe 15 minutes of handling the piece of sky ice, it was almost completely gone. Just a tiny little bit was left, and my glove was dry the whole time. I'd never seen anything like it before or since, and that's unusual because I've always had an interest in scientific things. I think that's even why I got selected to go to Antarctica, because a big part of the interview was about science and what I believed about things. So I really thought it was cool to see something I'd never heard of before. The whole time I was at McMurdo, I heard people talking about the wall like that was a special place. It's pretty common to find ice walls and ice cliffs all over Antarctica. The whole place is ice, but it's all just normal white or clear ice. So I asked my friend where they get the sky ice from, and he said it comes from the wall. I don't remember exactly how he described it, but apparently there's a huge wall of sky ice in Antarctica. He said it was hundreds of miles inland from the coast. I never got to see it myself because I was only, and then I'm going to skip forward, stationed to McMurdo. I didn't get to go out on expeditions. He said it was the biggest natural structure in the world. Imagine that. He said that in the 1960s, the U.S. Army had a plan to bore a tunnel into the wall, but they didn't have a boring machine that could handle the super cold temperatures, so they had a whole testing project in Greenland where they developed ice tunnels and invented new boring machines that could operate in super cold temperatures. So this was back when they were going into forming NASA and all the other things that were kind of strange, the Antarctic Treaty, around that time, pretty close to it. And he says, like they did this whole big thing in Greenland for just practice. So it was like they were practicing to bore into the sky ice. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just what he told me. Then, once they had the new boring machine figured out, they brought it to the ice wall, or to the wall in Antarctica. He said that the machine bored a tunnel. I don't remember exactly, it was like 5 or 10 miles into the wall, but that they never broke through the other side of the wall, and that they still don't know how thick the wall is even to this day. And I'm probably not remembering this part correctly, but I think he said that at first the floor of the tunnel was solid rock, but after a mile or two in, the floor was sky ice, like it was sky ice underneath after a certain point, or something like that. And apparently the wall slowly builds itself back up. So it slowly builds itself back up after you cut it, because after a year or so, the tunnel had shrunk smaller all by itself, like a self-healing wound. It starts closing up. They had to leave the boring machine inside the wall because the tunnel shrunk too small to get it back out. And after a few decades, the tunnel was completely gone, like the part of the wall was solid again. He said that now the scientists were trying to use technology to figure out how thick the wall is. He said something about putting earthquake sensors all along the wall, and that somehow you could measure the signal from an earthquake to see how thick the wall is. But he kind of lost me on that part. I never really thought about any of that after I left. It was really weird stuff, but I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. But then a few weeks ago, I saw a map of the wall in Antarctica, except the map was all flat and crazy looking, and it showed the wall going all the way up over the whole Earth. So since then, I've been trying to learn more about the sky ice that I saw and the wall that I heard about, but I can't find anything at all. So now I'm really wondering if there could be a connection here. And that's how I found this group. So I hope that maybe some part of my experience will help someone figure something out. Well, thankful to that person. If they were telling the truth, that is some very interesting information given what we know surrounds us. We know that the firmament's not just made out of ice. It's something special. That could just be something near the foundation to prevent you from going all the way to it. The Father's design is very complex, and he has foreknowledge. He knows what mankind's going to try to do. Those little nuclear bombs they shot at the firmament was nothing to the firmament. They can't break it. They've tried. If they could, they would, but they can't. And this is just one of those stories that confirms a lot of what I had assumed would be going on. I always thought, man, if they are out there and they can go to it, they're probably trying to drill through it. And if they are, how have they not gotten through it already? And that would answer the question for you, because it closes up as you go through it. But this was back in the 60s. There's no telling what they're trying now, mostly guarding it. I'm sure that's the biggest job they have, is keeping us from going there. And if you do go there, you can only go to certain places. It is tens of thousands of dollars for a one-way ticket. Otherwise, many of us would have already gone there, tried to do some sneaking around and investigating. But this video here, it only had like 300 views. But really cool stuff. Wanted to pass this along. I know the days of censorship have it to where you can't find stuff like this anymore. And I remembered putting it in my firmament playlist. I just wasn't sure if you guys had heard about this and wanted to pass it along to you. Answers some questions that most of you, if you're like me, had about what's going on out there and what are some of the properties near the foundation of the firmament, if they're even close to it. Could go on like that for many, many miles. Who knows? We'll find out soon someday. The firmament itself will roll away like a scroll, but that second day of creation, where he put this expanse for signs and for seasons, and letting us know that he will return very soon. And it's one of those things that we're sensing is right around the corner due to the way things are going in the world and what they're trying to prepare us for and all the division. But they're preparing for a war. I'll go over that in a little while in another video, what they're preparing for and how you can be prepared yourself to not fall for the deceptions to come. But see you guys around soon. I know that this is a random video, and I'm just trying to put this stuff out there and stop procrastinating and share the information that I have while we still can. I'll see you guys really soon. Stay safe and stay ready.
So that's another little tidbit of information that is famous sky eyes that nobody knows anything about. Is this real? Is it not? I have no idea, but I feel I have to include it here because it's just another piece of the puzzle, right? Now, another issue that we can touch upon is SpaceX and its wondrous rockets. I'm actually starting to think that Elon Musk is not attempting to travel to Mars or anywhere outside our realm. Every time they launch their rockets, something peculiar happens each time. The rocket behaves and shows us things that we have never observed in the past. Let's look at this little clip here and look carefully through the whole journey, because something remarkable happens to it. Let me see if you see it too.
Let's go! And see how fast it goes?
looks like. Let's go. Look. Oh, man.
Yeah! This is incredible. This is history. Ian, what do you think? I was crying, man.
It's Brad. Let's go.
So crazy. Amazing.
No way.
Where's it coming back to land? Over here?
So, did it hit something? What happened? Was that just a normal explosion, or what are we looking at? Let's have a look at another one, shall we? So, what does this rocket do exactly? It appears to be scraping the dome. It appears as if it's gliding on water. It looks like a boat, doesn't it? These rockets don't behave like anything that NASA has ever sent up there. And it's only since SpaceX started sending their rockets up that we can see this. So what is the real purpose? Is it to show us that there is actually an impenetrable dome up there? What is the real purpose of this? We have to ask. These are legitimate questions, and we don't have answers for them. And that irritates me. Now, let's talk about another issue here that is also extremely interesting. We will speak about the moon map. Remember when I said previously that the German map with the swastikas would show up again? Well, I thought this would be a good way to round up this section, as if it's not crazy enough already. I mentioned before that the maps that we know of cannot be relied upon, as the Khazarian mafia controllers could have falsified, changed details through time, and we would really never know. However, it has been discovered, and I was blown away when I understood it, that there is a photographic map of our realm on the moon, including some of the lands beyond. Now, this is the most compelling evidence I have ever seen, for now anyway. A researcher called Sturgios has deciphered the map and shows us exactly how it works. I will play this video for you now. Beware that the first half of the video speaks of maps and other things. The second half is the interesting part, where he analyzes the actual picture on the moon. And this is absolutely mind-blowing. I hope you will all enjoy this as much as I did, because I was rattled for days after I saw this. I'll see you on the other side.
All of them, Mercator and so on, are either 1. Original maps that belong to a period that occurred thousands of years ago and have been given false dates and narratives surrounding their creation. 2. Manipulated copies and versions of original maps that were created over 2,160 years ago. Or 3. They are all fake and created during the Great Reset of the last few hundred years to generate a false history and timeline and solidify the false historical narrative and the rise of Galilean heliocentricity. Out of all of these options, the second and the third are most likely. Cartographic world maps are not easy documents to create and establish. They require a solid understanding of our Earth's size and shape. They require a thorough understanding of the circles of latitude that are integral to the workings of our world. They require a complex understanding of the continents and land masses. These maps are likely manipulated duplications of maps thousands of years old, or completely fake. And we do see signs of manipulation, especially in regard to the landmass known as Hyperborea. We see Hyperborea in various maps of varying styles, and we are told that these are from the 16th century. But towards the 17th century, we see Hyperborea start to be erased from the maps. We see unknown land masses that are present in some of these old maps vanish entirely. And then it dawned on me, the message of this flat fact. We have no trustworthy maps, not a single one. We have no reliable source to show us the bigger picture of the realm we inhabit. I continued my journey, and as I ventured deeper into the forest, the path to the center that led me thus far was gone, and I could not turn back, and there lay no path in front of me. I became truly lost. How to know where you are going if you don't know where you are in the first place, if you don't have a map? All historical waymarks that I had invested some degree of trust in before were now completely unreliable and questionable. How much had been edited by the controllers? How much truth was left? What if all the maps were fake? Why are they hiding the maps of the last 2,000 years? We do not have one single accurate or honest world map. And like in all moments of being lost, right before despair takes hold, an unforeseen circumstance arose that set me back on course. I stumbled through thick overgrowth and out into a moonlit clearing with a small lake. At this clearing, I met a mysterious figure named Sturgios. I told him I was lost, and he told me to come and look into the lake. He told me to watch the water. What did I see, he asked. Myself, I replied, my reflection rippling and glistening in the moonlight. Mirror, mirror, look beyond yourself, he said. What do you see? And there it was, just as it had always been. Mirror, mirror, way up high. Mirror, mirror in the sky. Mirror, mirror, oh how they lie.
Yes, I know how you feel. I felt exactly the same way when I saw this the first time. I could not believe it. It left me rattled for days. Still today I look at it and it just blows my mind. Could this be real? This, if real, is the ultimate proof, not only of the fact that there is a photo of our realm as a negative on the moon, taken millennia ago. We can see that because there are continents like Lemuria that does not exist anymore, east of Australia. But Sturgis has meticulously studied all the distances, flight routes, etc. There can be no doubt. This is not just a strange coincidence. Also, there's more land beyond that we don't know anything about. So that is truly fascinating, and I hope I inspired you in this way, because this means something. And I hope we can now put this behind us and proceed exploring what these lands we see may be, how they look like, and what it means for us as a collective. So that's it today. Long video, I know, I apologize, but as I promised, there's also a lot of information. Next chapter will be chapter 9.5. It's called What is Beyond Flat Earth versus Big Earth. And here we explore what could possibly be the lands beyond and how that model would look like. So that's all for me today. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate you all. Max out, and peace to you all.